The Romans were obsessed with death. Unlike us today, who often try to push thoughts of dying out of sight, the Romans lived with it constantly. Death was not hidden. It was paraded through the streets, etched into monuments, and woven into every aspect of their culture. They believed that how you treated the dead could affect your own fate, and that ghosts were always watching, ready to punish neglect. To us, their beliefs about the afterlife might sound bizarre, chilling, or even absurd. But to Romans, they were deadly serious. Coins placed in mouths, beans thrown over shoulders, tombs treated as billboards. Every ritual had meaning, and every mistake had consequences. Death wasn't just the end of life. It was the start of something Romans feared and respected. In this video, we're diving into 10 strange Roman beliefs about death and the afterlife. From haunted houses to feasts with the dead, these customs reveal just how unsettling life in Rome could be. And stick around until number 1, because the strangest Roman idea of all might just change the way you see death itself. Coins for the ferrymen. When a Roman died, their journey wasn't over. Their soul had to cross the river Styx, the dark waterway that separated the living from the land of the dead. To cross, you needed the help of Charon, the grim ferryman, and Charon didn't row for free. That's why Romans placed coins in the mouths or on the eyes of their dead. These weren't just symbolic gestures. They were payment, literal bus fare for the afterlife. Archaeologists have uncovered burials across the Roman world with coins carefully tucked between teeth, clenched in skeletal fists, or resting where eyelids once closed. One coin could mean the difference between crossing peacefully or being trapped forever on the wrong side of eternity. The practice wasn't unique to Rome. Greeks believed it too, and the Romans adopted it with zeal. Some tombs even contained multiple coins just in case one got lost or Charon demanded more. Families weren't taking chances. Imagine being a grieving Roman, standing over a loved one's body, knowing that if you forgot the coin, their soul might be condemned to wander endlessly. Would you trust your relatives to remember for you? Or would you slip a coin under your own pillow while alive, just in case they forgot? 9. Restless ghosts. Romans didn't imagine death as peaceful rest. They feared the dead could rise not in flesh but as restless spirits. Spirits who hadn't been properly buried or honored were dangerous, angry shades that haunted the living. The Romans called them lemures and larvae. To appease these ghosts, they held midnight rituals during the festival of Lemuria. The head of the household would walk barefoot through the dark house, tossing black beans over his shoulder while chanting, "With these beans I redeem me and mine." The beans were thought to distract hungry spirits, luring them away from the family. If you skipped this ritual, you weren't just lazy, you were inviting hauntings. Writers like Pliny the Younger described haunted houses in Rome, with clanging chains echoing through abandoned courtyards and ghostly figures drifting through rooms. One famous story tells of a philosopher renting a supposedly haunted house. He stayed awake, writing by lamplight, until a ghost appeared, thin, shackled, beckoning him. The next day they dug up the yard and found a skeleton in chains. To Romans, this wasn't fiction, it was proof. Would you feel safe knowing one missed ritual, one forgotten bean, could doom your home to years of torment? Or would you keep a jar of beans by your bed, just in case the dead came knocking? Varnonradost. Funerals were a show. For wealthy Romans, funerals weren't quiet moments of mourning. They were grand spectacles, half theater, half ritual. The body was carried through the streets in a procession, surrounded by musicians, wailing mourners, and sometimes even jesters. But perhaps the strangest part, Hired actors wore wax masks of ancestors, walking alongside the coffin like ghosts of family past. These parades were less about honoring the dead and more about displaying family power. Your funeral wasn't just your farewell. It was your family's chance to remind Rome of their status. The bigger the show, the greater the prestige. Imagine walking through Rome's crowded streets, seeing dozens of masked figures, each one wearing the likeness of long-dead nobles. To the crowd, it must have looked like ancestors themselves had risen to attend the funeral. To the poor, though, such displays were alien. While they struggled for a modest burial, the rich turned death into theater. Would you want your final memory to be a quiet farewell, or a noisy parade with strangers wearing your face for one last performance? 7. The dead still hungered. Romans believed death didn't end hunger or thirst. The dead, they thought, still longed for food and drink. That's why families brought offerings to tombs, pouring wine, honey, and milk into the ground, leaving bread and meat on graves. During Parentalia, a 9-day festival, Roman families gathered in cemeteries to feast with their ancestors. Imagine crowded graveyards filled with children playing, mothers pouring milk into cracks in tombs, fathers laying bread on stone slabs, all convinced their dead relatives were dining just beneath the surface. It wasn't creepy to them. It was comfort. Roman poets even wrote about the dead becoming angry if offerings were forgotten. The idea of a hungry ghost wasn't metaphor. It was real fear. Today, we bring flowers. Romans brought dinner. Would you feel comforted sharing bread and wine with the dead? Or would every bite feel haunted, knowing someone unseen might be sitting beside you? Dreams were messages from the dead. Romans believed dreams weren't just figments of the mind. They were doorways. When a dead relative appeared in your sleep, it wasn't a trick of memory. It was a visitation. Sometimes the messages were comforting, encouragement, guidance, even love. Other times, they were chilling warnings or demands for proper burial. Cicero himself wrote of dreams where the dead revealed truths unknown to the living. Soldiers claimed fallen comrades came to them in dreams, offering warnings before battles. Romans took these dreams seriously enough to consult dream interpreters. A nightmare of the dead wasn't ignored. It was studied, interpreted, acted upon. Think of the last time you dreamed of someone you lost. Did it feel real? Now imagine waking up and knowing, truly knowing, that they had been there, whispering from beyond the grave. Would that thought bring you peace? Or would you sleep with one eye open the next night? 5. The fear of improper burial. For Romans, the greatest horror wasn't death. It was being left unburied. A body without a proper burial was thought to trap the soul, condemning it to wander restlessly, unable to enter the underworld. This fear was so powerful that even enemies were sometimes buried. Soldiers might cover fallen foes simply to prevent their spirits from seeking vengeance. Romans knew that leaving a body to rot meant inviting a ghostly curse. In Roman law, denying someone a proper burial was considered one of the most shameful crimes. Even criminals executed by the state were sometimes given burials, not out of kindness, but to prevent their spirits from haunting the city. Imagine how terrifying death must have seemed if the state itself feared angry ghosts. Would you risk leaving an enemy unburied, knowing his ghost might come for you? Or would you give him the dignity of a grave, not out of respect, but out of fear? Tombs as status symbols death, for Romans, didn't erase social class. It magnified it. Wealthy families built monumental tombs along busy roads, ensuring that every traveler saw their names carved in stone. The poor, meanwhile, scraped together coins for humble graves or ended up in mass burial pits. To the wealthy, a tomb wasn't just a resting place. It was a billboard, an eternal advertisement of status. Some monuments were so elaborate they included dining rooms for the living to gather in, turning tombs into social spaces. For the poor, death often meant anonymity, a name lost forever. Picture walking along the Appian Way, lined with towering monuments of Rome's elite, while knowing countless nameless dead lay in shallow pits outside the city. Even in death, inequality shouted louder than silence. Would you rather be remembered by stone grandeur for centuries, or forgotten within a year, buried quietly in the earth? 3. The dead could curse. The living Romans believed the dead could hold grudges and act on them. They wrote curses on thin sheets of lead, rolled them up, and buried them with the dead, calling on spirits to torment enemies. One curse tablet discovered reads, "Bind his tongue, blind his eyes, twist his soul." Imagine the chilling certainty that words carved in lead and given to a corpse could unleash torment on the living. To Romans, these weren't empty threats. They were deadly serious. Archaeologists have found entire collections of curse tablets near tombs and temples. Some were against rivals, others against unfaithful lovers, even neighbors in petty disputes. The dead weren't just remembered, they were weaponized. Would you dare leave a curse at someone's grave, trusting the spirit to do your bidding? Or would you fear the ghost might turn its wrath on you instead? Mass 2. The underworld was a bureaucracy. For Romans, the afterlife wasn't a place of peace. It was a system, a bureaucracy. Souls were judged, sorted, and sent to their destinations. The fields of asphodel for the ordinary, the fields of punishment for the wicked, and Elysium, paradise, for heroes and the virtuous. Death reflected Rome itself, orderly, hierarchical, and merciless. Even in eternity, you couldn't escape paperwork, judgment, and law. Poets described the judges of the dead, like Minos and Rhadamanthus, weighing souls like officials at court. Would you feel comforted by this sense of order, knowing good deeds could win paradise? Or would you dread the judgment, fearing one mistake could damn you forever? The Romans lived with this fear daily, seeing life as a test where the final grade determined your eternal fate. 1. The living could become the dead. The strangest Roman belief of all, that the boundary between life and death wasn't permanent. Stories tell of necromancers who summoned the dead for guidance, dragging spirits into the world of the living. Emperors, after death, were declared divine, worshipped as gods by the people they once ruled. In Rome, death wasn't always the end. It was transformation, sometimes elevation, and sometimes something far darker. To Romans, death was a door that swung both ways. Would that idea comfort you, knowing you might be worshipped as a god, or terrify you, imagining restless spirits crossing back uninvited? The Romans lived with death everywhere, in their homes, their dreams, their rituals, and their politics. To them, death wasn't something to hide. It was something to fear, to honor, and sometimes to exploit. So, which of these beliefs shocked you the most? Would you rather have coins for the ferryman or a family feast at your tomb? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoyed this dive into Rome's strangest traditions, subscribe to Civilization Deep Dives for more bizarre, fascinating, and haunting stories from history. Because the deeper you dive, the stranger it gets.